We are here with Aakon Schüssel, Country Manager China for Meyn Poultry Processing Technology at the International Poultry Forum China. We're in Beijing, China. Aakon, the H7N9 outbreak had a great impact on the Chinese industry. How can the industry deal with this kind of issue in the future as they go forward?
Yes, thank you, Gary. Yeah, the situation is that, in fact, in Europe, let's say originally from the Netherlands, we have learned our lesson in Europe, and as part of that, the Netherlands in 2003 with a major outbreak of avian influenza. Based in that, we adopted a policy and a regulation from the EU side to combat avian influenza, to set up a system to regulate, to prevent, and to enforce, let's say, a system to deal with avian influenza. It's all worked out in guidelines, in very clear guidelines. So for every farmer, for every poultry company, it's clear what they have to do in case of, let's say, an outbreak, and how to handle, how to deal with it, and how to communicate this. So this is something, in my opinion, very important for the Chinese poultry industry, that there will be a system set up and implemented from the government, which inspects poultry farms, poultry companies, and enforces regulations. The most important reason for that is that when there is an outbreak and there is let's say, a system which is adapted to make sure that the migration of the virus is controlled very well, that for instance the infection rate will be limited, that at the end all the steps together need to create one important outcome, and is that the consumer has trust that whatever measures the government has taken ensures them safe food. And in the EU, these measures are very strict. If I look in the Netherlands, for instance, if there is a high pathogen avian influenza outbreak, the government imposes a so-called 72-hour standstill for the whole country, where animal, let's say, movements are forbidden from livestock. Also, the country, let's say, is divided into compartments, and the infected zone, within the infected zone, and a so-called control zone around, all the poultry is cleared. This is, let's say, for the poultry companies, this is a big catastrophe, you can say. On the other hand, in this way, it is avoided that, especially because the high pathogen avian influenza is very quickly migrate, so it can infect the whole industry in a very short time. So by doing these measures, the government avoids that a disease will spread too quickly and infect the industry as a whole and the consumers in the end. So these measures are severe, but at the end they lead to a optimism and a trust amongst the consumers.
Of course, you mentioned in your talk about this subject today at the meeting that it's the government's responsibility to talk about these kinds of issues and problems with the consumers in a responsible way.
Yes. Today we had an interesting discussion here in China, is that some people believe that the poultry industry itself should stand up and organize, let's say, a way to deal with these problems. I believe that there is a responsibility, clear responsibility from the government. And And the government, together with the poultry companies, poultry union, poultry society, should adapt a clear regulation to be able to handle, to work, to combat these, let's say, food safety risks issues, and also to enforce a system of inspection and follow-up. This is something, if you leave it only to the poultry industry, then I don't think you create a sustainable model. Because as long as the government doesn't enforce it, why, as a poultry company, you should be basically punished for something which comes out of your own initiative. So in EU, in US, in Brazil, where, let's say, the consequences of an outbreak are severe, there is a clear regulation and a clear system to handle this with government support, especially. This is what we should have in China, in the Chinese industry as well.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary.